We're going to go ahead and get started. So, I appreciate everyone for being here. And this has been a journey. The focus of this kind of webinar, so to speak, is a client and the experience I didn't know that I had. But anytime that I perform or do any public speaking, I like to level set the audience. We all come in from different places, whether it's Mr. Howell, who looks like he's relaxed, um, whether it's Chrissy, who looks like she's at work. So what I like to do is I like to take a visualization exercise. So I'm going to ask everybody to ride this journey with me, and I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. If you don't want to close your eyes, that's fine too. I'll just make fun of you. So close your eyes. We're going to go on vacation together. Okay. And I'm going to selfishly tell you where I am going on vacation for my 50th birthday. So my wife and I are taking a vacation without the kids. They're taking a separate vacation, which I didn't know that was going to happen until we actually scheduled it. But we're going to go to Cancun to an all-exclusive adult resort where they're going to just take care of us and pamper us. Not going to leave the resort. I'm just going to go to the pool, the beach, not have to worry about cooking, not have to worry about drinks, not have to worry about my kids beating me up, bruising my arms, and I can just breathe and relax. And the kids are going to be on a cruise with their surrogate grandparents. And so everybody's going to be taken care of and everybody's going to breathe and have a great time. I'm going to ask you to either think about where you have either gone on vacation recently or an upcoming vacation that you're going to take or one that you would love to take. And I'm going to count down from 10. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 3/4, half, quarter, and 0. All right, everyone come back to me. So anytime that I speak, I do this exercise because it grounds folks and brings them to me. And the title of this presentation is called Being Present When It Matters Most. So I want all of you to be present with me. Very, very important. And so I'm going to give you an expectation. Hey, Kareem, um, of what we're going to be looking here today. You're not going to have to take notes. You are going to get information at the conclusion of this presentation. And this is going to be a real life example of a client, again, that I had. And his name was Hugh. And I nicknamed his last name Breeze because he was like a cool breeze. I'm going to go through what transpired with Mr. Hugh Breeze. And I'm going to ask for all questions. There's going to be a Q&A session at the end. I'm going to ask you to hold all questions, to the end. I promise there'll be a lot of time for questions. And I am going to go ahead and bring the presentation up. There we go. All right. So Hugh Breeze, like I said, he was cool as the other side of the pillow. So Mr. Breeze, I met him in 2004, and just like most of the folks that I meet in a professional capacity when I'm working with clients, they are physically responsible. Basically, they are already good with money when I start to work with them. And this gentleman was no different. And he just needed for me to kind of massage a plan for him to get him into retirement comfortably and to live out his remaining years. And all he cared about was a bottom line. And he had a number in mind, when there was a bottom line. Chris, I just want to see this number on paper all the time. And so we got him his plan 2004 when I met him. In 2006, he retired. And his life, he was single, no kids, and he was not married. And that's going to be important later on in this presentation when I introduce another partner here. And he wanted to go to the gun range on a regular basis, wanted to have coffee, he wanted to do photography, and he wanted to travel. Travel specifically by car and not by plane. And he was very, very set in his ways. And we had a great relationship for 20 years, and he had a great life for 20 years. I'm also going to bring in a little bit earlier than I initially thought. Hugh's adoptive daughter, I would say, that he wanted to have kind of as his daughter. She has to leave a little bit earlier, so I'm going to bring her in a couple of minutes. And I'm going to give you an expectation of really what transpired. And so in 2024, August of 2024, and as many of the folks that know me have seen kind of the path and the things that I've gone on, and I've developed certain skill sets and certain senses. So in August of 2024, I had my senses that were starting to go off. Again, Hugh didn't have anybody to kick in for him in case he reached incapacity, except for me, and that's not my role or my responsibility. And I started to see things changing with him. He wasn't traveling as much. I saw him fall a couple of times, and he was just a little bit different. And I think he realized that he was a little bit different. And in talking to some of his other friends after he passed away, they said that he noticed a difference. And so my experience going back to my parents, when I was a caregiver for both my parents, it transcended now to Hugh Breeze. And my major concern with Mr. Hugh Breeze, one is he didn't have an estate plan. And he didn't want to have an estate plan, and he didn't care where his assets went to. And I was trying to figure this out because he was very set in his ways, like I said. And my concern now that I'm seeing things happen to him is that I can't give him his own money if he is incapacitated. And that was the triggering event for Mr. Hugh Breeze. I said, hey, I can't just take care of things. And he said, well, why can't you just give me money, when you see fit? And I said, well, it really doesn't work that way. And so for a matter of 2 or 3 months, I was just trying to figure out who could be a power of attorney, who could be an administrator, who could be an executor, and mirroring all of these things at once because it was a ticking time bomb. And I was under a lot of pressure because I knew that this was going to fall on me ultimately. And I found an attorney in Orlando that could do all of these things, but the meeting was about a month or so off. And I couldn't wait that long. And in my network, I have another attorney that I had no idea that her law firm does all of this. So what they did is they drafted an estate plan, and he had a trust, and it was the full gamut. And not only was she able to draft the estate plan, she was also able to have someone in a law firm be a power of attorney, the executor, the personal representative, everything on into settling his estate. And that was very, very important for me and the people that were in his life as well. And fast forward, he signed the paperwork for his estate plan in November of 2024. In January of 2025, he had a major accident. And this accident involved him fully submerging his vehicle in a lake. And I get a call from Chrissy the night before, and Chrissy said that he's not home, he's left. It's probably 10 or 11 o'clock at night. And then I said to Chrissy, he's a grown man. Let's not panic. And if he doesn't come home by the morning, then let's call the police. And in the morning, I think it was about 6 a.m. Or so, she gave me a call and said that he had been in a major accident. And I'm going to stop there because Chrissy has to go. And Chrissy, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. So, again, Chrissy, for anyone that's joined in late, Chrissy is Hugh Breeze's adoptive daughter. And let me just find Chrissy here. There you are. Chrissy, I'm going to have you take yourself off mute. There you go. So, Chrissy, I want you to tell us your relationship with Mr. Hugh Breeze.
Well, first of all, hello everyone. This is very exciting. Chris has done an amazing job. Hugh has been our downstairs neighbor um, for probably about 15 years. We've um, warned him nicely that we had two very loud children for many, many years um, in case he chose not to live there. But I could not have had life any different or wanted it any different because he became part of our family. And Hugh, I would go down there on Sunday mornings. We would sit and have coffee. He would tell me about his adventures, the people in his life, like Chris, that he would just enjoy spending time with and what they did. And we definitely formed a very special bond. And he definitely will always hold a very special place in my heart. And I'm the emotional aspect of it. So, but an amazing, amazing man. And like Chris has said, he was very just free loving, spoke his mind, but you knew where you, the place that you had with you. And he was an amazing, amazing man that offered so much to everybody.
Yeah, he would give you the shirt off of his back, and he often did that for folks.
Yes.
So I'm going to kind of put something ahead of where we are just because you have to leave. So before this major accident, and before there was a structure in place, so at the end of Hugh's life,
Yeah.
it became very daunting for Chrissy because she was tied emotionally with you. And I'm not any different, but I did have this relationship with him, the business relationship. And something that happened, and I'll go over this in a little bit more detail, is that Hugh was in a rehab facility and Chrissy was torn about being able to visit him basically every day and taking care of her own life. Things just happen in everybody's life. And so, Chrissy, I want to hone in on what it was like for you, specifically before there was a structure in place, and the structure was the companion service,
Mhm.
and then afterwards, what that did for you.
The prior to life was very erratic because, as Chris mentioned, I was always trying to find time to be able to go there. I put a lot of guilt and stress on myself because I wanted to be able to be there, but we all have things going on. Um, so the stress factor was big for me. When Chris had recommended and suggest the companionship, the peace of mind that brought to my life, because I knew that Chris was going to be able to find the best people possible to be able to care for Hugh. So if we were all not available, that somebody else would be available and be able to report back with the things that they liked and they didn't like. And that in itself, when you love somebody or you care about somebody, just brings you to a whole nother level. And for me, knowing that he was in a good place, knowing that I could count on Chris, because I put a lot of pressure on Chris because, as he said, he was the emotional, but he had the business aspect of it. So I was all emotional. And so he just put so much ease to where my responsibility was, which I was eternally grateful for, because then I felt like I could help more because the pressure wasn't there that I needed to do it. Though I wanted to do it, I also felt like, okay, I have to do this. I love him. I care about him. I want to be there for him. But like I said, Chris put everything in place. He's like, Chrissy, this is what I'm going to do, so on and so forth. And, you know, that in itself is just a gift that, I will forever hold dear to my heart, because then I could be where I needed to be with him when I needed to be with him, and know that he wasn't alone the other times.
Thank you, Christine. It's like you said, she did put a lot of pressure on me during that time frame. I'm going to kind of start there, and then I'm going to back up a
Oh,
little bit more about Hugh. And Chrissy, thank you. I know that you have to jump off.
mm-hmm.
Um, so at the point, there's a lot of things that are going through my mind in regards to this companion service. So Chrissy presented me with a problem. The problem was she can't go and see him, and she feels guilty about doing that. And my first reaction was a companion service. And again, I know the financial aspect for Mr. Hugh Breeze, and I know that he could have afforded it. And that's the black and white emotional side. The other aspect was I had to go and locate a companion service, and that's not an easy feat. And time was not on our side. And so within 12 hours, I vetted three companion services. I met the companion service at the rehab facility the next morning. And Hugh Breeze signed the paperwork for this companion service. And the pressure that Chrissy put on me was that we're not going to have eyes on him on a regular basis unless someone else is there. I couldn't be there all the time. She couldn't be there all the time. And so this companion service was a lifesaver, and it did a couple of things. It relieved the emotional side of for Chrissy, as well as it did for me, but it also put some checks and balances on the rehab facility. And very specifically, so Mr. Hubrey signed this paperwork at 11 a.m. on a Friday, and he had, I believe it was a Foley. Is that correct, Chrissy?
Yes.
And the Foley had been, I guess, sometime before we had got there, had probably not been changed. The companion service actually came in and they were his companion on Saturday. He went 26 hours without having that Foley changed. And so now, and I'm getting a report, right? I'm getting a daily report. And now I'm in a situation to have a conversation with the facility. So on Sunday after church, I went with Anne Marie, my wife, and my kids to the facility. The kids stayed in the truck. They didn't want to go inside. Anne Marie went, and I said to Hugh, "Don't flirt with my wife," as I'm going to speak to the higher ups, and he was just kind of smiling. So I went and I spoke to the nurse manager, and I also called one of the managers of the facility, and then I basically gave them the business. And so I came back in, and Hugh's looking at me and he's smiling. And I'm like, "Well, what are you smiling for?" And I had this very serious look on my face. And he said, "I know that you took care of things." And so in that aspect, I was able to use all this experience that I've had before and utilize it for this client for him to have the best possible care for his remaining days. I'm going to back up. Um, and I'm going to give you a little bit more clarity about Mr. Hugh Breeze. So I had alluded to he had this accident, and he had this accident, and there was several things that happened as a result of this accident. They said that he had some sort of a medical event, and he fully submerged his truck in a lake. What we were told is he had an accident and he went into a ditch. When I get to the hospital, it was very apparent that his belongings were full of lake water. And he lost his driver's license and he lost his social security card. Those were two very important aspects to note. And so the medical provider, the nurse practitioner, she was the one that said to Mr. Hugh Breeze, "I don't think you should be driving anymore." That was going to be my job to say, "I don't think you should be driving anymore." But she said it. I looked at him and I said, "I agree with you. And I think you should take her advice." And he looked at me and he said, "Yes." So he was in the hospital, I don't know, probably another 10 days or so. And some key things happened on his way out of the hospital. He was concerned about finances and he wanted me to see what he was going to have to pay out of pocket. And I get with the facility and they say that his out of pocket for a 10-day hospital stay should be less than $2,000. And our relationship had changed as a result of him getting in the accident. I'm a fee only financial planner, but this is a different animal. And so the fee only aspect is one part of it, but now I have to go to an hourly arrangement because it is so in it's intensive with everything that's going on with him. And when I'm the one that goes and I pick him up from the hospital, and he says to me, "Aren't you glad that you're now charging me hourly?" And I had some reservations because our relationship was such that for so long. So I pick him up from the hospital. Chrissy had some concerns because, again, I alluded to he has firearms. And she was concerned because he had this medical event and he was displaying signs of cognitive deficiencies sometimes that there was going to be an issue with the firearms. And during this time frame, because we had just got his estate planning done, the attorney had to kick in and be his power of attorney. So you talk about 2 months from the time he signed his estate plan to when the power of attorney had to kick in. And so he gets out of the hospital. There's a couple of other things that happen. He's at home and he's progressing. He gets a bill from the hospital for $130,000. He hands it to me and says, "Chris, just take care of it." I intervene. The hospital sends him a reconciled bill for $1,100 and he's very happy. And something else I just know from experience is that someone is going to try to come after him for money. In this accident, there was no personal property damage. There was no one else involved. He simply drove over basically a public grassy area and drove into a lake. And he was very lucky to survive. So someone comes after him and says that you have damaged my property. And so hands the information basically to me and says, "Chris, just take care of it." So I know what I probably would have done in my personal life, which is different than how I would advise him. And so I said, "Well, we need to get an attorney to deal with this." The attorney made contact with this other party and it just went away. Um, and so he was still living his good lifestyle and his magical number was great. And then he's progressing and he's progressing until about October. And I'm going to see him on a very, very regular basis and, taking care of some other things, including which trying to get him a new Florida ID card and a new Social Security card. And that is basically an act of Congress to get that done. And so getting a Social Security card, you have to have medical records and you have to have basically a you have to have a copy of your birth certificate. He had none of those. And so I had to have my assistant, Amanda, help me to obtain those. And it was a process. So we get his Social Security card, and then I am going to schedule time to go get him a Florida ID card. And in the process of me scheduling him to get a Florida ID card, he is short of breath. I call him and he's short of breath. And I say, "Mr. Hugh Breeze, what's going on? You're short of breath." And he's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Can you make it to the doctor?" No. And so I call 911. And again, this experience is deja vu because I had to do the same thing for my father. I had to navigate this. I had to walk them through. So I navigate 911. I have them give them instructions on how to get into his condo, and they take him to the hospital. He has fluid in his lungs and he has cancer. And I knew at that aspect that he was not going to live a long time. Mr. Hugh Breeze did not want to be kept alive artificially. And that was in his documents. And but his team around him, now myself, Chrissy, and the estate planning attorney, knowing he was not going to be able to go home, we had to find a place for him to go, a rehab facility. And this is kind of where the story comes along with Chrissy and the companion service. So we found that, vetted it, and he was in this facility. And he was in the facility for probably, I don't know, maybe less than a month. And so the companion service, like I said, is giving me information on a regular basis. And any folks that know me know that I volunteer for hospice. Part of the information that they were giving me was that he was slowing down eating and he was also just generally slowing down. Um, and so that let me know that he was probably on limited time. And so it wasn't a shock when I got a call from the attorney that he was going to pass away. And in my responsibility as his financial planner, I had to protect myself as well, and I had to protect my firm. This could have been a classic case of a elderly person being taken advantage of. And so I did a couple of key things. Again, this estate planning attorney, anything that I did in terms of fees or anything like that, she was the eyes on them and she approved them. Even if he was in his right mind and fully capable of doing that, I passed everything through the estate planning attorney to clear that hurdle. And the other things that I did also was I had the right team around him, including Chrissy and the human element, and then the very technical aspect. And so this is not a process. And I was asked because I was at a conference when he passed away, and a couple of financial planners said, "Well, is this a service that you would like to offer, a lot of people?" And I said, absolutely not. And I said, this was such an exhausting effort to help one client, but I will offer this to other clients that I have in my realm. And to give you an idea, I probably spent in the course of that year, outside of any financial planning, I probably spent, I don't know, maybe 80 hours doing this extra stuff for Mr. Hugh Breeze. And so it was very, very ironic that I think some of the folks on here, Jason knows Maddie, that Maddie was doing a presentation for another organization that I'm involved with. And I was like, are you kidding me? There's an organization that does everything that I did, and it's called Child Free Trust. And so this is a very specific niche and very specific way to help someone. So Maddie's organization does all that stuff that I did, but they know how to do it. I did it all by fire and by instinct. My process is not repeatable by anyone else other than me, but Maddie's program does that. And so I'm in the business of one, connecting people, finding solutions, and delivering things for clients. So I want to introduce Maddie. And Amanda, if you could put Maddie's information in the notes, that would be great. Maddie, I'm going to let you take it from there.
Sure. Hi, everyone. It is so nice to be here. I know some of you. Chris, thank you for this presentation. I'm honored to even just be in the audience of this. Your story with Hugh Breeze touches my heart. I think it touches all of our hearts. This is a real situation that people find themselves in. 25% of Americans don't have kids. 15 million people over 55 don't have kids. Now, I go on podcasts, I talk from stage, I talk and work with people all the time, and I correct people when they say, oh, so you don't have a family. No, I do have a family. I just don't have kids. And that is the truth for a lot of people. And as we start looking at some of the younger demographics, Pew Research just did a big study that folks under 49, if they haven't yet had kids, 47% of them say they aren't going to have kids. So this is a growing demographic. And those of us on the call that haven't had the traditional next of kin that the legal system and the estate planning system assume we will have, just know you are part of our community and that we have built a solution really to solve the problem that Chris Dale navigated so eloquently. And Chris, I just take my hat off to you because this is an exceptionally challenging problem to help someone navigate. The systems and structures in this world are not set up to support people without kids. When we look at traditional estate planning documents, there is an assumption that we have kids and we have wealth to transfer to them. Many people without kids plan to die with zero. As Hugh Breeze he had a number of different financial goals that maybe wouldn't be the same if he had had a number of children. What we set up at Child Free Trust was a solution to be able to support people in answering the question of who's going to make decisions for me when I can't. One of the challenges that I think I'm up against and our team is up against is that estate planning just sounds icky. People don't want to think about estate planning because it means thinking about death. What I want to remind everyone, and I know I'm preaching to the choir here, and Chris is a perfect example of this, estate planning encompasses so much more than just what happens when you die. And just like Hugh Breeze, a lot of us really don't really care when we die, what happens to our stuff. But I think there's room for expansion of what the definition of estate planning is, because as Chris just explained, there's a lot of things that can happen ahead of death that warrants estate planning. That means identifying your team. That means having documents that give that team the right to act on your behalf. That means outlining your wishes. That means outlining your wishes if there were scenarios of cognitive decline or incapacitation. So what we've done is be able to set up the first nationwide, which means we can work in all 50 states and DC, as a professional corporate fiduciary. That means we will be acting in people's best interests. We are set up to work exclusively with the child-free demographic. And this means that you're able to identify us as medical power of attorney, financial power of attorney, executor, and trustee on estate planning documents. I think Chrissy did a really good job of explaining that you may have people in your life that love you and care for you. I have a partner that will love and care for me, but I don't know if they're going to be the one that needs to carry the burden of my financial matters if something were to happen to me. Being someone's medical power of attorney is a huge role. And in the case of Hugh Breeze, could last a long time. So when we're all thinking about who can be making decisions for us on our behalf, the easy answer isn't always just our best pal, because our best pal is often better suited to take care of us emotionally than try to navigate and quarterback our care plans. So Child Free Trust launched just this year. It's taken about 3 years to build. I'm on the founding team. I am not a founder, but I'm the chief growth officer here. And we are set up to really work as people's professional fiduciary. We create complete estate planning documents that are catered to the child-free community. So there's things included like pet trusts, because 70% of us without kids do have pets, and we tend to be more motivated to do our estate planning for our pets than for ourselves. All of our documents do not include generational assumptions of next of kin. You can list us as any of the 4 roles. The most difficult one to identify, which Chris talked about having to search for, was the medical POA. We can be identified as that. We don't have to be the first choice. We can be the last choice. And then we have a whole section in our application called our care documents, which is everything around what you want to happen. And this is where Hugh Breeze could have really been comprehensive in his wishes. Chris, as his advisor, could have worked really well with Hugh kind of in our application, working through the interview around, if this were to happen, what would you want? If you were not able to make decisions, or maybe you have cognitive decline, where would you want to go? How frequently would you want to be checked in on? All of those things can be written down and documented and captured, and allow our team, which is a trust company, to be able to actually act as a fiduciary and ensure that your wishes are followed. One of the benefits of identifying a corporate trustee, a corporate or kind of a third-party entity, is that we're scalable in nature. One of the challenges of identifying an individual is that an individual only has so much time to dedicate to these roles. And so what we've set up is the ability to have a scalable solution to be able to act on people's behalf. So I don't want to take up too much time with the details and the nuances. We have all sorts of information on our website. We have webinars. We're priced at $1,000 a year to be able to be listed in any of these capacities. And it really feels like a really serendipitous experience that a good pal of mine, Chris Dale, had this lived experience. And when I told him what I was doing about a year ago, he was able to share the story of Hugh Breeze, and it matched so perfectly to the work that we're doing. So Chris, thank you for having me on. If anyone has any questions about how we work, I'd be happy to work with you and talk to you about it. But this lived experience is a really perfect example of the problem we're trying to prevent, which is the people that are are meant to care for the individual should be caring for the individual, and the professionals who are there to quarterback the care should be quarterbacking the care. So thank you, Chris.
You're welcome. So I'm going to take this a step further with Maddie. I've known Maddie for, I don't know, maybe 10 years or so, maybe a little bit longer than that. It's hard to believe that because Maddie's younger than I am. And I didn't believe that she was working at the organization that helped me launch my firm, which was XYPN. And what I knew of Maddie then, there's no surprise where she is now because she is such a go-getter and puts 150% into anything that she does and is very specific about the things that she chooses to channel her energy in. And so when I see that and I get excited about that, um, I thought it was a no-brainer that, I have this experience with Hubris, and then I give a solution that really would have helped me out. And if I had had Maddie's company, Child Free Trust, back then, I would have said, Hugh, this is something that we're doing, buddy. You know how much strain and stress is on me to take care of this, and how much fear and anxiety that I have, and to pay whatever it is to take that off to make sure that you are taken care of. And there's no doubt. I told Hugh the level of care that he had was better than the care that I was able to give my own parents. And that's because I had more experience. And that says a lot. And but to have a repeatable process to be able to do that. Now, that I've been through the process, if there wasn't a client that was child free, I now know that I can go to my custodian where they will have some resources, Charles Schwab. And then I also have a network of attorneys that can take care of that now. So now I do have a process that is a little bit more repeatable. Again, it's that trial by fire. I do want to leave it open for questions, and I promise that. And let me see here. I am going to put a link in there. I saw some information in regards to review for the book. That's going to be addressed a couple of times. So I'm going to put a link in here, and then you're going to get, Mr. Howell, you said that you feel like you needed to take notes. I have a handout that I'm going to send your way at the conclusion. It's going to give you Maddie's information, and it's going to address some things that are a little bit more articulate than I was able to do in the presentation, that you can take and kind of go forward with that. Amanda, is everyone able to unmute themselves if they want to ask a question?
Yes, they
Okay.
just the audio button.
All right, that works. Fire away.
Chris, are these questions about Child Free Trust, or are they about your client, or what are they
There,
about?
any of the above, any questions that you want to ask?
I put a question in. I put it directly to Maddie, but I think of some of the clients that we may run into. I've got a actually a little less than middle-aged client. She's in her mid-40s, and we thought of Child Free Trust for her, knowing how awesome Maddie is, and if she's there, it's got to be a great company. But then I was looking at the pricing and trying to figure out whether it was the right move for her, knowing it'd be $1,000 a year for hopefully 40 plus years. Most estate plans aren't $40,000, and so it was kind of hard to square that circle. Even though you would review your estate plan over 40 years, and it would be more than a few thousand over that time. But what are your thoughts, maybe Maddie, on a client like that? Because we're still to recommend her estate planning solution, and this still could fit if we could make it make sense.
Yeah, I think there's a couple points here that if she has people in her circle that can act in these roles until later in life, that's totally fine. This is really built for the people that are struggling to answer the question of who can step in, and who are delaying getting the state documentation done because maybe they don't have people to write in there, or they want to have the backup. I will never be someone's medical power of attorney without having child-free trust as the backup, because at some point it might
I
become
see.
too much.
Hmm.
So offering it as a backup. One way to also think about this is that the alternative can be pretty gnarly. State appointed guardianship can come in, frozen assets. It can become extremely complicated if you don't have someone to be able to protect you in those ways. So if she's stalling on getting estate planning documentation done, this is the best option.
Okay.
I hate saying this, but this is a tax that many of us as child-free people just have to pay to have the peace of
Child-free
mind.
tax.
Yeah, and you know, there's lots we could say about that.
Mhm.
But this is, you know, something that hopefully you never need. 1/3 of us will die calmly in our sleep, and we'll never need medical power of attorney or financial power of attorney. But this, you know, it's not insurance. I can't call it that. That's a regulated industry. But we can think about it in that way that you may pay for it and never use it. But how much comfort and peace of mind does that bring you over the years? And I think it has less to do with age as it does to do around kind of urgency to get things done. So if she's feeling and you are applying pressure around having estate documentation done, talking about what happens if she's traveling abroad and something happens, what happens if she's in an accident. I mean, again, to my point that there's a lot that can happen before you pass away that warrants estate planning. And this is also her ability to start working with you on really what her wishes are long term, who her aging care managers are, where she wants to be, identifying you as a trusted resource that should be updated on a monthly basis or a weekly basis. Those of you who are advisors, we're setting up a directed trust, so you will remain the investment advisor on the trust. We have no interest
Okay.
in having any of that. And to your point, Jason, around prices, only some trust companies will act as financial and medical power of attorney, only a few medical, and they will often charge tens of thousands of dollars a year to do
Okay.
it.
And just for that, as a follow up, Chris's client example, where he was doing all these things, say my client, you know, and she does travel, and she is a little bit like Nelly Furtado, who's like a bird and may not get married.
Yeah.
You know, say she's in a foreign country and she gets hurt. How does Child Free Trust know that she got hurt and know that she needs help?
Yep, good question. And 60% of child-free people will never marry, so that's a whole nother consideration.
Hmm.
Many of us will be in partnerships but not need marriage. Um, we send out membership kits to our members, and those will, you know, increase over the years. We're thinking about having bracelets and things like that. But
Oh,
to be identified in a phone as emergency contact, you could also let Child Free Trust that you are know that you are
emergency contact.
traveling.
Okay.
Um, Now, internationally, it gets a little wonky whether POA is accepted, but
Hmm.
they will certainly try their absolute hardest to ensure that wishes are followed on an international level.
Thank you. That's helpful.
I'm going to bridge a gap here too. So Carolyn Moore is the founder of the Modern Widows Club, which is Maddie. Do you know Carolyn?
No, but I'm
Okay.
excited to.
Okay. So yeah, I come and I meet world famous people sometimes.
Well, no,
So
thank you so much, Chris, for tipping me because Maddie, I just connected with you on LinkedIn. You
Oh,
know,
great.
these are a lot of conversations we have with a lot of our ladies because they're widowed. They were married, but now they're widowed. And, you know, from age 40 to age 85, we go from with the widowed population to be only 1% of the population, but by age 85, 73% of all women
Oh,
alive are widowed. So, you know, we know this and that we see this happening with our ladies in their 70s, um, panicking, who am I going to make the decision? We get these questions a lot within our organization, our communication and local, you know, conversations.
mm,
So I'm really happy to find your resource because most of the ladies are really baffled. I was widowed very young at 37, so I had to pick friends to be a part of my estate planning. I actually never picked anyone from my family because I actually felt like my friends were the family that I had chosen and they would raise my daughters. So I've gone through until my daughters were 18 trying to decide what was going to happen to them. We also promote doing end of life planning so that you do actually, you know, your memorial or, you know, funeral is already planned and paid for. That's when I go out of the country, I have my relocation and transportation insurance that will bring me back into the country. And like, my daughters know where that information is. So I have children, but a lot of our ladies, this is a big area of concern. Either they don't want their children to be in charge, even if they have children, or they don't have children at all. And I've been talking to Chris. Chris is an ambassador on our ambassador council, and our organization has been very involved. And he knows of these challenges. But thank you all for being on this call and caring about this, because our ladies, we always ask them to work in this trifecta of a financial planner, an estate planner, a state attorney, and an accountant, and get those three to work together so they can decide these very important decisions. But for the ladies with no children, it is an extra weight of what do I do? And a lot of our ladies now are on texting uh, circles. So they've had a few ladies die and they weren't found in their house for several days because family's not checking in on them. And now, we have ladies who are that check-in point, and it's just a beautiful thing. I think a lot of them would really care about finding out about your services.
Great. Yeah, I'll reach out, Carolyn. Thank you. And thank you for your work. It's so needed.
I think it'd be great to have you on our Healthy Widow, Healthy Woman podcast, because then we can reach more people and share about this resource.
Yeah, absolutely. Widows was actually the first time several years ago I ran across this issue as I worked with advisors, as I had people like Jason and Chris and others kind of talking about, I have a widow and I'm not sure what to do around estate planning. So it is an absolute need.
Just so everyone here understands, in the United States, there's about 11 million widows. There's about 3 million widowers. So we serve mainly women, but we know that the men need these types of services too. The average age of a widow in this country is 59.
Wow.
So it's much younger than what people think. And our organization is 52. So, it's these decisions do have to be made, and they are a big source of disrupted sleep, a lack of peace in life. And once they make these decisions, I see these ladies just really, their lives elevate and become much more purposeful.
Thank you, Carolyn. Something else about Carolyn too is that one of the things that I learned early in my career, and it's not a shock, is that any formal relationship with a man and woman where there's a marriage, chances are that the husband is going to die before the wife is going to die. And I can't tell you how many times I have seen that transition happen, but not only that transition happen, but whoever the financial point person was for the family, they ignored the wife. And how many times I've seen that attrition to my company because of simply the fact they know what I do, highly specialized, but they know that I'm going to take care of that individual. And I don't specialize in working with widows, but I work with a lot of widows because of that reason and because of what I can do for them. And one of the biggest resources that I offer a widow anytime that I encounter them is the Modern Widows Club. And I say this, I can never know your experience. But what I can do is I can offer you an organization where you can have mentorship with other widows. And I often recommend that as a first step before formally engaging with me, among other things. Because there's just so many things that they're going to have questions on or feelings that they're going to have that I cannot help in that realm, but they have access. And I can also say that one, two, three, four, at least four of my widows have gotten engaged. They've either done traveling, um, they have done some sort of clubs, and just stuff that just blows my mind. And then once we reconvene, it's a lot easier. It's tremendously easier. So we have about 6 minutes left, any other questions? I'm going to bring up some other stuff on the screen.
Chris, I'd love to know how you're handling other clients like Hugh Breeze right now. Has anything changed around your advice to them and how you support them?
Um, yes. Um, my sense of urgency for folks that were fighting me to do the estate planning is different. Because I have had other folks that have fought me on doing the estate planning. And that's a sense of urgency. And I had another client, she wasn't child free, but she had a major health scare. And she thought that she was going to die. And for me, I have to kind of tiptoe that and not kind of push so much, but I'm like, this is a great example as to why that needs to take place. And frankly, I don't want to be the fallback for that. That's a lot of stress and that's a lot of pressure. And the folks that know me intimately understand that that's an undue burden that they could put on me as somebody that they've worked with for 20 years. So that definitely has shifted for me. Thank you for asking that question.
Hey, Chris, this is Stacy. Thank you very much for inviting me. This has been very enlightening. And so I want to introduce myself. I am the managing partner for New York Life in the state of Alabama. And Maddie, I really love the work that you're doing and wondering if you would be open to doing a webinar for my entire team. Because I believe this is a area where a lot of attorneys, they don't focus on it. They're not equipped. And I'm looking at your website and I see that you operate in all 50 states. So that's good because we do business in all 50 states. But I would love to touch base with you offline. I'll connect with you via LinkedIn. And then Carolyn Moore, same thing with you. Love the work that you're doing. And I believe it's an opportunity for us in the state of Alabama to connect more in that space. And we'd love to have both of you on a webinar in the future for my team so we can talk about it.
Would love that, Stacy. Our trust company is actually based in Alabama.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and Stacy, I'm actually on the New York Life Foundation Bereavement Advisory Council. So we're
So
actually,
you know us very well.
yes, I know you very well. And we're actually having an event this fall in the New York Life Building in New York City. And yeah, I really appreciate New York Life and their different offerings to our widows. And in fact, we're talking to them about doing a special program just for widows.
Good.
So, and we were in the 2025 grief report that they just rolled out, if you happen to see that. So,
Okay.
yeah, thank you for seeing that connection.
So I'm going to bridge the gap on this well-looking man in the middle here. So Stacy Graham is like my older brother. I've known him for, I don't know, 20 plus years. He's the same age as my actual brother.
Yeah.
So exactly the same age.
Is that 21 years old, Chris?
Yes, 21 years old. So I'm happy that he is on there, as I'm happy everybody else is. But Stacy has witnessed me from a little bit different point of view than a lot of other people. And it's more of kind of that little brother relationship. So I appreciate that. Maddie and Carolyn, I'm glad that you were able to connect with Stacy. He's well connected, let's just say that. And he's very, very good at what he does. Anybody else? Before I selfishly bring up what I'm going to say is what I'm going to ask for all of you.